Secure the bag. Don't even blink, make them walk the plank. Light them up, let's make them sing. Fire the cannons, fire the cannons, fire the cannons. Oh, Bucks, yeah, we on. Fire the cannons, fire the cannons, fire the cannons. The whole field's our red zone. Let me give you 55 reasons why this is our season. Palm trees breezing, opposing teams bleeding.
Do not adjust your screen. We are back. We are back. I cannot believe we are back. And just in time for the first game of the preseason. Welcome to Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I'm joined by a familiar face here, my man KB. How you doing?
Doing well, Gene. How you doing?
Man, I'm excited, man. I mean, when you look at where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, and you look at the culture, you look at the personnel, you look at the front office. I mean, you look at the even the people in the kitchen. It doesn't matter. The Buccaneers have just put themselves in a really good place compared to what we've seen in previous seasons. I mean, I would say since 2020 moving forward, the Bucs have continued to improve, and I like where we are right now. And you know, this was probably one of the more painless off seasons that I've had to deal with. What about you?
You said it's painful for you?
Painless.
Oh, painless. No,
nothing painless about it. Nothing painful about it, man.
I was like, shit, Jason Light
Light has been cooking.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best GM job, I think, across the NFL because, yeah, I mean, most, franchises or fans are going for other teams are going to say, hey, we didn't get those high ticket, free agents. But typically the best players in the league don't make it to free agency. And when you can keep guys like Antoine Winfield and Tristan and Mike off the free agent, train, and then you bring back, like a Jordan Whitehead as like your little piece that you did get externally. You got some depth, at the corner position. You just brought not even like it's cliche to say bring all of your guys back, but every quality free agent that there has been, like very rarely are you seeing, X Bucks signs with whoever. And if it is, it's generally a player that wouldn't have maybe made our roster anyway. Like our favorite, like Keyshawn Vaughn, not Keyshawn Vaughn. Keyshawn Vaughn.
In Frisco.
Yeah, he went to, San Francisco. So like we here in camp, there's 4 really good running backs going on right now. So like,
when was the last time we were able to talk about 4 good running backs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, I mean, Chase Edmonds hasn't even like practiced much. So like, Sean Tucker's apparently take advantage of his opportunities. Bucky Irving sounds like he's basically solidified running back 2 in that kick returner role. So, things are looking good. I think Rashad is primed, and we'll see if he gets a 1K yard season. But if he's going 1,500 all-purpose yards, I'm not here to complain with a better rushing average. If he's getting more bailouts with Bucky Irving and Chase Edmonds, keeping him fresh for like fourth quarters, that's what it's about, man. Like,
dude, I'm going to tell you this right here. I don't really care. I think the 1,000-yard rusher thing is cliche. I think it's a joke. If you got a guy who's getting speed, has speed in space, and he's able to do this on a consistent basis, that's what you want right there from your running back, because you're basically keeping the defense on their heels. You don't need a guy that's going to, 1,000 yards is nice, but you have a guy that you can depend on to bail you out with a pass, and you can move the sticks. You want that. That's what you want on a consistent basis. And I think we got to see that from Rachaad White, where he was able to bail out Baker Mayfield on multiple occasions. So I'm just excited to have him. And I don't see him as – there are a lot of people that are casual fans. I was on Bleacher Report, and somebody made the statement, the asinine statement, that Rachaad White's on the hot seat. And I was like, what? Huh? He was 10 yards away from 1,000 yards. And I really believe that if the OC had done some things differently, I honestly made some different play calls, I believe he would have went over 1,000 yards. But that's just me. And I don't know for sure. But I can tell you right now that we've got a quality running back. And with some of these other running backs that I'm hearing about in camp, I'm excited for this season. So much so that I will say that I think my attention's more drawn to the defensive side of the ball, to that front four and getting home with four. And you've heard me say it year after year after year, getting home with four. That's going to be important. That's going to help your linebackers, and it's going to help your safeties and your cornerbacks. If you're putting pressure on the quarterback right away, I mean, you're making their job a whole lot easier, and you're forcing that quarterback to get the ball out sooner, and they're not having to cover as long as they need to. But of course, we all know this. And in my honest opinion, I will say that what we have with Yaya Diaby, a healthy Kalijah Kancey, a slimmed down Vita Vea, and some of your other linebacker, edge rushers, whatever you want to call them. I'm really looking forward to this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially on the defensive line outside of Vita Vea, it's a young man's game of who can get there. I truly don't believe that we're going to be getting there with 4, Gene. I'm sorry to say, but I do think we can get there with 5, and a lot of that I think you're going to see Levante David blitzing. I think you're going to see the Georgia kid. Oh my goodness, what's his name? Tyke Smith. You're going to see Jordan Whitehead. You're going to see Antoine Winfield. But what we don't need is to blitz 6, 7, as much as what we've been doing in the past. So for me, it's can you get there with 5? That means, hey, good stunting on the defensive line, guys playing to their gaps, playing smart, disciplined ball.
Do your job, basically.
I like the draft across the board. I mean, with Chris Braswell, I don't think he's going to be the answer, at least in year 1. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has shown his potential. Yaya Diaby's now dealing with an injury, so maybe takes him a couple weeks to get back into the swing after apparently having an amazing camp. But I really think, if our favorite, not Logan Hall, Kalijah Kancey can come in, no one's going to beat Aaron Donald, but to provide that pressure on the inside because we know Vita Vea is going to get those double teams. So if he can, again, like you said, get the quarterback to make a quick read or get the ball out quicker, especially on let's say 3rd and long, that's just where this defense is going to have success because the reason why you get rid of Carlton Davis is because you're going to play zone a lot. And that was Carlton. I mean, all you have to do is watch the last 2 minutes, especially of the Houston Texans game last year to see that Carlton Davis can't play zone, or at least not very well.
And real quick, while we're on this subject, I'm glad we're here. And shout out to Christopher Cole. Thank you for chiming in here. How do you talk people off the ledge that claim that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers cornerback room is going to struggle this season? I mean, there's a lot of competition out there right now. I can tell you that. There are some players that, we know. There are some new players that are untested. And, how do you calm these people down? And that's kind of where I was with the whole front four. I mean, if you're rushing 5, I really believe that we've come up with addition by subtraction. In getting rid of Devin White, I really believe that players like a KJ Britt can come in and they can alleviate some of the deficiencies that we saw with a Devin White. And again, we saw Devin White without Levante David, and he looked lost in the sauce. And I'm going to say that. I'm not saying that because he's gone. I mean, it's just what it was. He looked lost in the sauce. And he didn't, this was his time to step up and, hey, you got to pay this guy a max contract because without Levante David, he stepped up and did what he needed to do. We didn't see that. We didn't see anything consistent from Devin White from 2020 forward, and even some parts of 2020, I would even say. But we didn't see any consistency from Devin White. I think you've got guys that have a high football IQ. They go out and do their job, and they're not a liability in certain situations. So I believe that the Bucs, they came up with that, like I said, addition by subtraction, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'll be keeping my eye on the Philadelphia Eagles because I want to see. I want to see what they do. I want to see how they move. I just want to see what happens this season, because to me, I've seen this movie before where a guy feels like he's disrespected. He goes out on social media. He says what he says. He puts all these subliminal things out there about the coaching staff and, the GM. And, he says all these good things about the team he's with now. I've seen this all before, and I've seen how it's turned out. So it's going to be interesting to see how Devin White does. And again, I'm not beholding him. He's got two opponents in this season. It's going to be the Eagles fan base, because we know them assholes eat their young. We already know what the Eagles fan base is all about. And the Buccaneer fan base, as he kind of dissed them going out the door and going into his new situation. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I really personally do not believe, and I'll go, this is going to be on video forever. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you cannot build a defense around Devin White. There's no way. There's no way. But anyway, I want to get your thoughts on that.
So yeah, Devin's little soliloquy. I'll just defer to the Rick Strouds of the world, which is essentially that what Devin is saying occurred does not match up with what the insiders wrote about, heard about, and what they experienced. So Devin just comes across as an unreliable narrator. Again, I don't know what happened inside the walls, but it sounds like from a captaincy standpoint that he just, the last couple of years, just, he brings energy, but we saw you're wearing a jersey as someone who brought energy, but, when it comes to the on-field leadership, just wasn't there. I mean, just even when Lavonte David was attending the Tom Brady roast, he kind of threw a shot at Devin White that like he can't take a joke, or you can't say anything about Devin to Devin. And he just, obviously Devin felt disrespected. He wanted to go to the Eagles. He got,
for the past 2 seasons,
$5 million instead of $100 million that he wanted.
For the past 2 seasons, he's been trying to get to the Eagles.
But, and again, whatever happened there happens. For Devin's sake, I mean, the Eagles really don't prioritize the linebacker role. And if he gets benched in Philadelphia, he's screwed. But the one thing that goes really well for Devin is his 2 best years were 2020, 2021. And I'd say those were the best our defensive line was during his tenure here. So obviously he benefited a lot from prime Vita Vea, from prime Shaq Barrett, from, right at the tail end of JPP to really wreck that havoc. Ndamukong Suh eating up blocks there as well. So allowed him to, have a lot more open lanes. Lavonte obviously helped when he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Pass coverage liability, but ironically, he's a one-trick pony. He can blitz, and he can get the quarterback fast. Like, that's what he is. He has to learn all those other aspects of the game. You're not going to be, the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans with a linebacker who's a one-trick pony. You need the Fred Warners. You need the Lavonte Davids. You need the Demario Davises. And KJ Britt showed, especially in that playoff game, in my opinion, against the Lions, that he's not going to be any of those guys. But what he's going to do is he's going to do his job. If it calls for him to make the tackle, he's going to make the tackle.
Right.
If he's in coverage, as long as he's not one-on-one, he'll be able to play in his space. That's what really middle linebackers are in the modern NFL, unless you're special. So I think KJ Britt will be okay. Devin, I wish him well.
Yeah.
And he has a great defensive line in front of him, but it's kind of like what we said with Jameis when he went to New Orleans following up Drew Brees. It's like, if you can't get it right with Sean Payton, if Devin can't get it right with the Eagles' defensive line, what are you?
There's a situation if that's the case.
It's the perfect situation to go to, and I understand why he probably wanted to go there and took their offer when they offered him, because it's a great position to be for a linebacker.
100%. But I kind of go back to the times where Lavonte David was not on the field. And this is
Like,
your
we need the best team
this
in
is your
2021.
opportunity. This defense can roll. You've got Todd Bowles. He's drawn up these plays, and this is your opportunity to show I'm a max contract guy, and nobody else can tell me different. But what we saw from him, we saw deficiencies. He was exploited in several games where he should have stepped up, and this should have been like his moment to really show what he can do. And we never saw that from him. I think Devin White's best play is when Levante David is on the field. And unless you could, show me some film otherwise, that's just what I'm seeing. But he was totally exposed and compromised when we saw him without Levante David. And that's just how I've seen it. And I understand in his mind, he's a max contract guy. He's probably thinking right now he's going to make 2 or 3 or 4 plays and he deserves a max contract. He's thinking back to all the Philadelphia Eagles props that he's given everybody over the last 2 seasons on Instagram and unfollowing the Bucks and all this other crazy stuff. Now it's time to put up or shut up. And that's just kind of where he's at right now.
All right, I'm done with Devin White. Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. The next subject that I do want to talk about, and and this is big right here, is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, and
$100 million man.
the $100 million man. I think he may be worth the money. When I'm looking at what these other quarterbacks around the league have been overpaid, that have just basically, they've got their gun, put their bandit mask on, and gone in and robbed the bank. And I look at these guys, Jordan Love. I mean, has he sniffed a NFC Championship game? Or,
He almost did.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, close.
I mean, he went into San Francisco and played pretty darn well.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, he's only had 1 season. My problem is with like Daniel Jones, I mean, you got to show more in order. I mean, Baker's basically a 2-year, $60 million deal, which Baker $30 million APY. Again, we got him. It's like the Shaq Barrett thing. You got Shaq Barrett for $4 million. He goes out and does 19 and a half sacks.
Yeah.
A blank check, the following season,
it's realistic.
You ate the bonus of whatever he gave you. So, what are you worth to me now? And Baker right now is worth, I mean, he's not a 40, 50, $60 million quarterback, but right now he's a $30 million quarterback. Yeah. And I'm okay betting on that. And again, he has the supporting cast around him. The offensive line, if we figure out, left guard. But my good boy, Jalen McMillan, is going to be a nice piece, chess piece for him and Liam Cohen. You still have Trey Palmer along with Evans and Godwin. Kate Otten, I think, is going to be that a really good piece in the personnel. We're going to do a lot of 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end packages. So I'm really excited for Baker. I think this offense is going to allow him to do better, more over the middle, which I think was his biggest weakness last year. Whereas I think down the field, he struggled with everyone but Mike Evans, but outside the hashes, I mean, his numbers are up there with some of the elite guys. So if this offense can open up the middle of the field, and then he's a little bit more apt to check down to Godwin or Rashad White, I think that's when he played his best last year. I mean, everyone talks about the Packers game. How about that Jaguars game? The Jaguars come into Tampa with a playoff spot, on the line, and he played his 2 best games. I mean, against the Packers, sure, that was an amazing, performance. But I thought the Jaguars game, if you just watch the tape and the tape alone, was the most impressive game.
It really opened my eyes. I would say probably getting into the 4th or 5th game in Baker's career, I realized Baker Mayfield can read defenses. And it's like a light bulb came on, and I was like, wait a minute.
Unlike number 3.
Yeah, unlike number 3. I mean, but when you think about it, man, you've got a quarterback that can read defenses. That's huge. Baker Mayfield did what he needed to do. I know a lot of people were harsh with him, and there were people that wanted him to fail even. And for me, I was happy with what Baker Mayfield did. I feel like he can improve. I feel like he can improve off of what he did, and he's a good leader. Number one, I will say that about him. He's good for the community and what he's done, and he doesn't put the team in a bad situation. Or we saw a couple of occasions, but consistently Baker Mayfield is going out there to try and win the game. And I believe that the upgrade in offensive coordinators, no offense to Dave Canales, but I believe you have an actual in Liam Cohen. I feel like you have somebody that can get the most out of his players, play to their strengths. And that's why I say I believe that you will see a Rachaad White going over 1,000 yards. And, that's one of my hot takes. But, with that running back room that they have, with the wide receiver room they have, and, with the tight ends that they have, and we've got some that we haven't really got to see yet, which I'm when I heard that Todd Bowles said none of the starters are he's not going to have any starters on this first preseason game, I was excited about that because you're going to get to see some of the tight end play. And I know this vanilla plays, but these guys have to go out and execute. And it's going to be huge to me to see what they do and how they can contribute to this offense. So to me, I'm looking forward to this. I'm actually looking forward to this game more so than seeing some of the starters because I want to see some of the players that we don't know about. Some of the players we never talked about in the offseason coming in here and showing what they can do and how they can contribute. This is going to be a long season. You're going to have injuries. And I believe that getting these guys out there and showing what they can do, even in vanilla plays, is going to really help this team.
Yeah, and then just to your point, the one thing that's really awesome about the current state of the Buccaneers that we couldn't say 10 years ago, and really not.
I would say even 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, let me get there. Really, ever since like 04, 05 is probably the last of, you had like the Rondé Barbers of the world, like Mike Allstott was, I think, his last year really at that point. Lynch and Sapp were already gone. But that was probably like the last semblance of like, because Gruden was going through the roster like crazy year over year. But that was like the last semblance of real leadership. And that's where, guys like Gerald McCoy came in. And people, have their things about Gerald McCoy, but he didn't have any leaders to really help him. He just came in and was just thrust upon him. He had the C on his chest day one, all that type of stuff. I think the Bucs obviously built that really nice culture in 2019 with the Bruce Arians era. Then obviously Brady comes in, but Brady comes into an already established culture of some really good veteran leadership. And, there was voices in the locker room. And that's kind of what's really happened with Baker is a lot of the leadership internally, like Levante's passing off some of that leadership. He's not going to be here in probably a couple of years. And probably 2 years is probably the most Levante's really going to play at this point. But you see the next line of leadership. Tristan Wirfs signs his extension. The whole offensive line's like at his press conference. Baker signs. Everyone's at his there's players at the press conference. These guys love each other. They're all pretty darn close. It sounds like off the field. Some are even timing their babies. I think that's obviously a coincidence. But they're all parents around the same time. Right. So they got their own daycares, between each other and their wives and all that stuff. But it sounds like, from Baker coming in, and I think the whole leadership thing, we see it with number 3, it can be a little overblown, but Baker being himself, and I think he allowed it to come naturally rather than force it. I think of the Ryan Fitzpatrick, hard knocks to Jameis, trying to hype up people before going out on the field. It sounds like Baker is his true, authentic self. The players around him love him. He's got a pretty fair, modest contract that's, it's not going to ruin the team. And even in 2 years, I'd say Baker has a really good 2 years. They can extend him and, make that, last $40 million a little bit, easier pill to swallow. Baker plays into his 30s with the Bucs. Things can be good, but if things also go poorly, the Bucs are also in a good place. And I think Todd Bowles, this is where I'm getting to. I think Todd Bowles deserves a lot of credit, and I know a lot of people are saying, his overall record is at or like slightly below 500 if you include all the bad Jets years. With the Bucs, obviously we won a division, with a losing record. Where is all of this? Brady, didn't perform his best under Bowles, and last year we overperformed, sure, but like, is Todd Bowles really an elite head coach? And he might not be an elite head coach, but he's the source of the locker room where everyone's allowed to have these spaces. They're together. They seem to rally around Bowles. Guys are re-signing. If Todd Bowles was such a bad guy or a bad coach, why would all these players want to come here for 3, 4, 5 years on their extensions? Todd Bowles, I think, has really taken that mantle, which year one was obviously a little scary.
But if you think about it, it was more about the unknown. We didn't know. You didn't know what you had with a Todd Bowles in the first season, maybe going into the second season.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is it didn't look good, but he was able to maintain. I mean, the Bucs were working with pretty limited resources last year. I mean, they pushed like $70 million off of Brady, to make those 3 years work. They took the whole credit card bill.
Right.
Like, they're at even right now. Yeah, they have to do Shaq Barrett next year, and Ryan Jensen and then they're completely done with the credit card, basically. But they've re-signed all of these guys. Obviously, Jason Licht, Mike Greenberg, all of them deserve all the credit. But Todd Bowles has done a pretty manageable job. He found Dave Canales, and you can say what you want about Canales, but what is he doing right now? Even tonight, he's head coaching a Panthers team.
100%.
He found him literally off the street. No one wanted – Todd Monken didn't want the OC job for the Bucs. All of these really good offensive coordinators that were out there, they did not want this job. So he took a chance on a guy like Canales, and it paid off. Todd Bowles deserves that credit. And then
100%.
Liam Cohen, I think, is everything that you liked about Dave Canales. You take away a little bit of Canales' personality. I think Dave Canales' personality, I don't care who you are. If you don't like Dave Canales as a person, I can't agree with you.
You're the devil. You're the devil if you don't like this guy.
But that's what I mean. But Liam Cohen, I mean, again, he's not going to have that personality that that Canales had, but he's more of a football junkie. This is what he's always wanted to do, is call plays. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams and went and bounced back and forth with Kentucky just because, McVay's calling the offense. Like he wanted a taste of that. And so he's ready for his opportunity. He wants to be the next McVay. And Todd Bowles might be one of the first defensive coordinators that could literally have an offensive coordinator academy, because we know all the head coaches that become or that go from OCs to head coaches. There's a lot more of them than there are DCs. So maybe Todd Bowles has a really good eye for these offensive coordinators, and you don't have to worry about every 2-3 years when someone gets promoted or goes elsewhere that Todd Bowles can't get the next guy because he's already done it. I thought Liam Cohen is an amazing hire. I think it's a great fit with Baker. I think it's a great fit with the offense. I mean, we've seen what Sean McVay has done. He won the Super Bowl when he had, an okay Odell and prime Cup, winning the Triple Crown and everything. But you want to know, and you can compare Cup and Godwin, but you want to know what Sean McVay's never had? Mike Evans.
Yep.
Like, imagine what that's going to do for the offense. And, Baker doesn't have to throw for 4,500 yards. He can throw for, the Bucs actually have they have 8 total 4,000-yard seasons, Gene. 5 of them have come in the past 5 years.
Make that make sense.
So from that perspective, Baker doesn't need to throw 4,500, 5,000 yards for this team to be successful. Throw between 3,500 and 4,000. Have a 2.5 to 1 TD to interception ratio. And I think the defense is going to be a lot safer. They're not going to be as, up and down as they were last year. So I think, again, knocking on wood, no injuries. This team is not going to win 14 games, but they can win 9 or 10, and they're going to probably, if not win the division, be a wild card in the playoffs.
I really believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs are going to be a problem for there are going to be a lot of teams that aren't going to want to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's just my opinion on it. I think what we saw, what they did to Philly, I really believe that, they were deficient in certain positions against the Detroit Lions. And I think they've kind of fixed a lot of things, but you kind of have to go into the playoffs healthy. And I really believe that the Bucks can go in healthy. They're going to make a lot of problems for a lot of people. And again, just like you said, I've been on the Todd Bowles apology tour because, I was totally wrong. I was 100% wrong. I don't have a problem admitting that. As a matter of fact, I'm glad that Todd Bowles, did what he did. They put this team together and everybody rallied around him and it proved me wrong. I'm good with that. And I'm happy that, this is where this team is. So to me, when I look at Todd Bowles, when I look at the offensive coordinator position, when I look at what they've done as far as coaching, and you look at the stark contrast from Bruce Arians and what Bruce Arians brought in to what you have with Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles has made this team his own, and we saw that in the playoffs last year.
I love that you say he made it his own, because I think I think we all work in the corporate world, and we all have that really good boss that was really good, we all love. And what happens when they leave, right? They bring in someone who's going to copy everything that they did, but it's not the same.
It's not. It's not.
Todd Bowles came in, he has his own voice. I'm sure he stands for a lot of the, same principles that Bruce Arians does, but it's not the same, even culture.
Right.
It's different, but it's still a positive environment. The players love him. Apparently, Todd Bowles talks shit during practice. Todd Bowles created basically a new thing because of Canales last year, these scripted periods. I have never heard of this.
Right.
Where two coaches don't have a practice completely planned out, and you're pretending like it's a game, and you're just calling a defense not knowing what the offense is calling, and you're calling an offense not knowing what the defense is calling. So you have to audible and, get into the right checks and everything like that. But he's doing it now with Cohen too. And I love that. And I think that type of creativity is awesome. And again, that's something he came up with because Dave Canales just didn't have the experience. So it's like, how can I give him experience without actually having him have a game? And he figured it out.
Yeah, 100%, man. And again, we have to give credit where credit's due. That was an amazing pickup, bringing Baker Mayfield into Tampa.
And apparently, Todd Bowles. Jason Light was on with. I know you probably don't listen to Rick Stroud, so I'm going to be the one who says this.
So I appreciate that.
So Jason Light was on with Rick Stroud on his podcast, and he was talking about how basically Todd Bowles was the catalyst for Baker. Todd Bowles wanted to draft him in New York. They had the 3rd overall pick. They take Sam Darnold. Because Baker Mayfield went number 1.
Right.
So from that regard, he wanted Baker. He always kept in touch with Baker, apparently. They would, talk throughout seasons. It was like, hope one day we can work together type of thing. And then he gets cut from, gets cut from Carolina, then goes to the Rams. We obviously couldn't do anything because of Brady. You're not going to bring in a quarterback. And then once he became available, it was like, hey, it sounded like Baker was basically told you're going to be in the starter. You're going to be in a competition with Trask. But it sounded like Baker was Bowles' guy. And look where that led. You can't make that stuff up. They still had a first place schedule last year. And I think they did they lived 5 games above their expectations.
Right. I totally agree with that. Christopher Cole has an interesting question. How is the heck Bowles ranked 27? I'm actually gonna go first. Christopher Cole, I'm just gonna say this, and not I don't want to sound harsh. That's not my intent here. But when you talk about the 4-letter network, the 3-letter network, or whoever, I don't give a damn less what they think, because they're not local. They're not involved with everything that's going on locally. And they don't see what we see with Todd Bowles. I think a lot of these people are looking at Todd Bowles in New York, the New York Jets, Todd Bowles. They're not looking at, what we're seeing, what the players are seeing. And KB, you made up some really amazing points when you're talking about players that wanted to come here and play with Todd Bowles. Okay. And these are things that don't get talked about enough. And unless you're local, unless you watch podcasts, and I'm not, and you have your Joshua Cole Allens, who is amazing, by the way. You have, you have these. There are a handful of different journalists here in the Bay Area that will give you, the insight on a lot of things. But unless you have that, you really don't know. So what these people are seeing as an outsider looking in, they're seeing the basics. They're not really digging in to see what's really going on as far as Todd Bowles goes. And I've been on the Todd Bowles apology tour all off season, which, again, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I'm sorry, Todd Bowles, that I ever doubted you. And, you've really shown what you've done, what you can do. Historically, when you look at what Todd Bowles has done in the playoffs, there aren't a whole lot of coaches historically as a Buccaneer that have done what Todd Bowles has done. So it's amazing, and thank you for what you've done. So to me, I feel like these people that are saying 27th, they have no insight as to what's going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
With that, so Christopher Cole, so 32 teams ranked 27th, 5 or 6 teams or coaches that they rank higher. Well, a lot of that's going to come down to how many NFL head coaching positions are open every year, between 5 and 7. So what they're basically saying is the Bucs have a little bit of expectation. Todd Bowles was quote unquote on the hot seat last year. The Bucs aren't a sexy team. And there's also coaches. I think Canales is actually ranked lower, which is better in this case than Todd Bowles, because they think that first-year head coaches are safer. Like, that's just where a lot of, that narratives are out there. Just as much as, they look at I bet you Mike McCarthy might actually be pretty high, and high being a bad thing on that list, even though he's won 13 games in the past, 3 years with the Cowboys. Like, from that regard, it's who's really on the hot seat. So what they're saying by the Bucs or Todd Bowles being 27th is basically that if he shits the bed, the Bucs win the 4 or 5 games that, ESPN or betting markets have the Bucs at, I think, 7.5 wins.
Yep.
And the Bucs have they play the Chiefs, the Ravens, the 49ers. They have a really tough schedule, mind you. So even if the Bucs win 9 games, I'd consider that a huge win. Right. But let's say, in their mind, Todd Bowles shits the bed and, the Bucs only win 4 or 5 games and bearing a Baker Mayfield injury or whatever. They think Todd Bowles is going to get fired. And you're going to see that, like, as a narrative. Bucs fans were doing it. So that's why I don't think that it's that far off to do that. Yeah. But what I think I quote tweeted this recently, and I was looking at all the lists, and none of those coaches in the bottom 10 had a playoff win, a Super Bowl win as a coordinator, nor were they with their franchise for 4 years or 5 or 6 years that Todd Bowles has been here. Yep. Like, they're typically head coaches who came in from another team, and they typically have short leashes. Like, Todd Bowles, what other coordinator in the history of the NFL has held Patrick Mahomes to 0 touchdowns in the playoff game?
That's the truth.
What other coordinator stopped Drew Brees, MVP Aaron Rodgers, and Mahomes? Technically, the Super Bowl was at home, but technically in away playoff games.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened. And how did we win the Super Bowl? It was defense. I love Brady. Brady threw 3 straight picks against the Packers.
Yep.
The Bucs were down.
And the Bucs were on the ropes against the Packers for a minute.
And they were on the ropes against the Saints. And rookie Antoine Winfield strips Jared Cook, and the rest is history. Devin White gets the interception. SMB gets 3 interceptions in 3 games. It was the defensive line specifically who made Patrick Mahomes' life hell, and Todd Bowles changed his entire scheme for the Super Bowl game, and Mahomes and Reed didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Granted, yes, the O-line thing is a real narrative with the Chiefs. I'm not going to discount that. But at the end of the day, how many excuses has Brady ever really got?
You're in the Super Bowl.
But that's what I'm saying. Todd Bowles' resume is too good for a 1 year. If he let's say he won 5 games this year, his resume, in my opinion, is too good to get fired. Now, if he were to do that 2 years in a row,
then we were talking
then
about
you're looking at basically what happened with like Raheem Morris, Greg Schiano.
But this is the thing though. You have to be an insider to see that, because a lot of people, like I said, are outsiders looking in, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Todd Bowles is on the hot seat. He's not a sexy coach. I mean, he's not a Sean McVay. He's not like a lot of these other coaches. I mean, when you look at Todd Bowles, and you automatically think of the New York Jets, which is what a lot of these people do. And I come back to that. But people aren't like taking a step back and saying, well, let's see what he's done with Tampa. And I can promise you that that's where a lot of people's mindsets are. They're looking at what he did with the Jets. They're not looking at what he's done lately. Otherwise, this would not be.
Won a playoff game and lost to the Lions by 7 on the road, who lost by 7 to the 49ers.
Exactly. And nobody's talking about that. But again.
But here's one narrative I got for you, Gene. You know who's not on the narrative on the hot seat? Matt LaFleur. He's the head coach of the Green Bay Packers.
Green Bay Packers.
Look at what the Packers did last year with Jordan Love, his first year as a starter, and look what the Bucs did with Baker Mayfield, first year as a starter. They both made it to the divisional round. Both obviously lost to the two teams that made it to the NFC Championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both had blowout wins in their first playoff game.
First round.
Against the Eagles, Packers against the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams. What do we hear about the Packers? Oh, they're the team. They're the team on the rise. That's the team that the 49ers and the Lions don't want to play. I think we have a better defense and we have better weapons.
Oh, absolutely.
And arguably, probably a better offensive line. They don't have a Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah.
Like, I mean.
And this is the beauty of this year. And this is, again, kind of going full circle, coming back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. You got your corner pieces for this offensive line, and you can plug and play some players in here. But I think they're in a lot better place now than they were last year. These guys have a lot more experience. Cody Mock, Tristan Wirfs, a healthy Tristan Wirfs, Gadecki, just players like that have that experience, that real-time experience, that game experience that they're bringing into this season. It puts them on another level, and we're not even talking. People aren't even talking about that, and it really needs to be mentioned.
And I mean, a lot of our downfall really came to, I think, honestly, obviously Brady was going through what he was going through, but that Ryan Jensen injury that changed, and the Ali Marpet retirement in the same year changed a lot.
Tough.
What did you do? I watched Graham Barton, and I also watched Joe Alt in the Duke Notre Dame game. Honestly, Graham Barton, granted he's playing left tackle and he's playing center for the Bucs. He held his own.
Exactly.
And from that regard, he's going to come in. He might not be Ryan Jensen year one, but also took Ryan Jensen 5 years before he signed with the Bucs and became the Ryan Jensen we all know and love.
Exactly.
Graham Barton has the chance to come in, if not year one, definitely year two, to solidify the interior of the offensive line. Like you mentioned, we have Cody Mock, who's in year two, went through his trials and tribulations.
Right.
Bredesen, I can't pronounce his last name because it's the alliteration
exactly.
that's killing me. But apparently Ben Bredesen is doing a pretty decent job at left guard. So if they just figure out the left guard position and stay relatively healthy on the offensive line, heck, even if a Mike Evans went down and Chris Godwin goes down, you have the draft class. Jalen McMillan's there. Bucky Irvin's there. That's where the GM head coach sink. And obviously the New York Giants were the team for the Hard Knocks offseason version.
I'm good with that.
No, but what I'm saying is you really got to see, how – and I don't think the Giants are a successful organization, not because I don't think Brian Daboll is a great coach, but I really don't think the man with the plan in New York – he basically told us what he was willing to play Saquon Saquon basically signed that same exact contract with the Eagles. And you saw the owner sitting in his office saying, I don't want Saquon to go.
Right.
That's an offense. That's a front office, an ownership, and a head coach. Not on. You don't think Brian Daboll wants Saquon Barkley to help with Daniel Jones? And that's the synchronicity that needs to occur for an organization to be successful. We see all of the top organizations across the NFL are the same 5 to 6 teams that are there every single year. It's ownership, it's front office, it's head coach. Now, you can argue Todd Bowles isn't a top head coach. I can argue with you that Jason Light is the best GM, if not a top 2 or 3 GM in the NFL. And the Blazers and ownership in the Jason Light era, they brought Tom Brady when 31 other teams said no. They wrote the checks. They wrote the largest check in Bucs history to Tristan Wirfs. They wrote the Antoine Winfield check. Everything Jason Light has wanted, he's given. Todd Bowles, you can argue he's not maybe the best head coach in the NFL, but if you have all 3 in sync and Todd Bowles is consistently getting that talent and he's getting these offensive coordinators that are allowing you to have, all, and also guess who's not on a coordinator anymore? Keith Armstrong. So the Bucs actually might have a decent special teams now. Yeah. So you have all the coaches, the front office. I mean, you saw in the current Jason Light sitting there saying, every single one of my scouts are like the lifeblood of this organization. 100%. If they're going to stand on a table for a guy, like I'm going to listen to them. That's the type of stuff. Those small details are what add up, and that's where the Bucs. You might not say Todd Bowles is the best head coach in the NFL, but the Bucs are one of the best run organizations right now in the NFL.
100%. And the fact that Jason Light and Todd Bowles are on the same connected, that's huge. Because we could go back to John Gruden and Rich McKay, and I haven't really seen that connection that where you're talking about. Going all the way up to right now. Where you have a Jason Light working hand in hand with a Todd Bowles. You just in historically, I would say, going back to that Super Bowl to now, we haven't seen it until, here recently. And it's been working out for the most part. And again, barring any injury, I really do expect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to quiet a lot more of these haters, which year after year, Tampa's still set at the bottom of the barrel, which I'm good with. I'm not complaining, and you will never hear me complain about everybody else in the NFL saying the Buccaneers are number 4. I'm good with that. Because you're taking all the pressure off of the Bucs. They can go out and play their game. They can do what they do and show these other people, hey, maybe you shouldn't have overlooked us. And that's where I'm happy with where the Bucs are right now.
Speaking of overlooking, are you ready to go on a rant?
I sure am.
How do you feel about the Falcons being the favorite?
I'm good with that because, again, they've let
hate
down
the Falcons. You hate them in your blood.
Well, I will say this: they've let down their fan base since the beginning of their existence up until now. What makes this year any different? And that's why I say, good on them.
Lee Morris isn't going to be the answer to all their problems.
Oh, not at all. And I believe that they're setting him up to fail, as a matter of fact, as well.
Well, I hate the Michael Penix pick because if they did take a Dallas Turner, I think I think what people overlook about the Falcons is their defense is so abysmal. You have Jesse Bates, sure. You got oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. The cornerback who's pretty solid. Sure. You got Grady Jarrett. Sure. What else do you got?
Yeah, you're not able to plug and play around. That's
and
not
Kirk
even a
Cousins is 36 years old coming off an Achilles. Okay, Kirk Cousins doesn't work. Michael Penix. Jalen McMillan was his 3rd option in college. Jalen McMillan, if we didn't have Mike and Chris, is probably a 1, if not a really good number 2 in an NFL offense as a rookie.
Right.
That's his number 3 option. How many quarterbacks do we see in Alabama, LSU come into the NFL And because they didn't have their Justin Jefferson, their Jamar Chase, I know I'm really going Joe Burrow out here. Obviously, he's the exception. But how many of these quarterbacks come in without their top weapons and come in year one or year two and are really good? So yeah, like if I almost called him Lovey. If Raheem and Cousins doesn't work out, yeah, they have the succession plan where they can, figure things out for a year or two before if they were to get fired if things don't go well. So yeah, they did their due diligence there, but man, I think people are really overlooking that defense, and I think they're really overhyping that offensive line.
Yeah.
What was Desmond Ridder? He's the guy who could avoid sacks. He couldn't throw the ball down the field worth a damn, but he could avoid sacks. But what do the people look at? Sack metrics. What did the Falcons do a lot? Run the ball. What do you think they're not going to do with Kirk Cousins, who you paid $100 million to? Run the ball. Like, you know what I mean? So you're going against the grain of what they did do well, and then you're changing the whole dynamic of the team.
Yeah, it's like why did you bring in Bijan? I mean,
because he's going to be a pass catcher. They think he's going to be Saquon, and you know what? He might damn well be Saquon, but that you give Kirk Cousins $100 million.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you going to do? Hand him off the ball?
And this is what I don't understand. What was it about Kirk Cousins in Minnesota that made you think that you could bring him to Atlanta and put him in this position, hand him the keys to the Beamer, and this is the guy that's going to get you.
Also, you pissed him off by drafting a quarterback.
And I guess I watched him play, and the one thing that sticks out to me is he's inconsistent.
Well, no. What is Kirk Cousins? The PFF guys, who, by the way, they just lost their podcast. They're no longer PFF after 13 years. Love them, by the way. But they have the Kirk Cousins line. Think of it like the Mendoza line in baseball.
Yeah.
Like the Kirk Cousins line is whether you're a good quarterback or you're not. So by default, Kirk Cousins is what? Average,
basically.
So, I mean, it's not like, you bring Kirk Cousins, great, but you didn't provide the extra supporting cast to do it. Yeah, Drake London might have 1,100 yards this year and 10 touchdowns. Maybe he does. But how many winning seasons has the Vikings had under Kirk Cousins? And you're going to tell me that Justin Jefferson isn't more talented than Drake London? He had prime Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. You're telling me Bijan Robinson's going to be better than Dalvin Cook too? I just can't buy it. I mean,
it remains to be seen, man.
He came into a Minnesota team that had that Minneapolis Miracle against prime Drew Brees Saints.
Yep.
They did that game and then absolutely got blown out with against the Eagles with Case Keenum, right? They thought bringing in Kirk Cousins to replace Case Keenum would take them, at least to an NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. That was the mentality, right? How many playoff games did they win? I think they beat the Saints once.
Yeah.
And that was a touchdown to our boy who came to Tampa with Brady. I forgot his name. The tight end. I mean, TJ Hawkinson's in my brain, but I know it's wrong.
No. What is his name?
Vikings tight end to Bucks.
Not Thielen.
Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph.
Kyle Rudolph caught a game-winning touchdown against the Saints. That's the only playoff game I think they won in Kirk Cousins' time.
Yeah.
And it's not like they were making the playoffs every year either.
So, to me, I guess I don't see the hype. I don't see the hype for Kirk Cousins.
Well, what the Falcons have as an advantage, even over the Saints, is a third-place schedule. Yep. So instead of playing the Chiefs, they're playing the Raiders. That might be – and you know what? That might have the Falcons have a better game or two over the Bucks. That might – again, not saying the Falcons are going to suck, but – how many playoff wins is Kirk? Baker has more playoff wins than Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And it's not like the Browns had the most amazing team ever either.
Yeah. I mean, they had the running back room, but their wide receiver room sucked. I don't say sucked, but it wasn't the best.
Kirk Cousins only has one playoff win in his entire 14-year career.
That's crazy.
And granted, he sat his first year.
He was at Washington
and all that
because he was at Washington. Then he went from Washington to Minnesota.
What is Kirk Cousins' record? Do you think, Gene? He's played. Let me count this up. He's played 99 games. How many games do you think he has?
I would put him at 99 games.
This is with the Vikings. He played 99 games in 6 seasons.
In 6 games, I would put him at 66 wins.
53.
Jesus.
He's 53, 45, and 1 with 1 playoff win with the Vikings.
That is wild.
And you're telling me he's going to be the savior. And it's not like this Falcons team was the Falcons team when Matt Ryan was there and they made the Super Bowl, like with Kyle Shanahan running that offense.
Right.
Like that Falcons team was prime Julio Jones. That Falcons team this team is not that. They also had a defense back then.
Yeah. And who is the tight end? The tight end for the Kyle Pitts. I mean, I don't.
How many years is Kyle Pitts going to break out, Gene?
Oh man, since he was a rookie. It's always been this is his year. It sounds like the Dallas Cowboys. It's like this is our year. This is our year. And you're saying Kyle Pitts is going to break out. I think Kyle Pitts is who we thought he was. Right now, when you look at Kyle Pitts and what he's done, this is who he is. They're like Jameis Winston after year 4. This is who he is.
Wasn't Jameis Winston going to be the savior for the Saints?
Yeah, but it's who he is.
And do you know who their savior is now, Gene?
Oh my God! The guy that paints his fingernails. What's his name? Carr.
No, they want Carr out, Gene. Carr's dead to them.
Oh, the Rattler.
Oh, you mean the guy who was the favorite to win the Heisman 4 or 5 years ago and bounced around, has a bad attitude. But you know what? He's 5'9", 5'10", and has a cannon for an arm. Yeah, playing against third-team Saints defense.
Sounds like Kyler Murray. I'm just playing.
Kyler Murray is good when there's not a new pod out.
And that's the one thing I will say about Kyler Murray. He is. I think with the right offensive coordinator, he's gonna do wonders for this team. So we'll see how that goes.
But my point is, okay, you have the Saints who, again, we're just going off fan reaction here. You have the Saints who don't believe. I mean, it's Derek Carr too, who's really going to stand on a table for Derek Carr saying, "I believe." And then you have the Falcons who draft a guy after paying a guy $100 million. So who can you really root for? And then you have the Panthers who you have a rookie head coach who's only called plays for 1 year, leading a 5'8", 160-pound soaking wet QB who played like absolute dog shit last year.
Basically.
I'm sorry, Bryce Young. I hope you do better than what you did last year, but that was dog shit. I mean, the Bucs won that last game, but you're telling me the Bucs only scored 9 points? Watch how, if you go back and watch that game, watch how many 3rd and 10s they run the ball because they just didn't want to risk it.
Exactly.
That's the guy you believe. And that's the thing is this is a 2-team race. The Saints are going to hover around 7 to 8 wins just because they do have talent, but how long is Young gonna stay healthy? How long is Tyrann Mathieu gonna stay healthy? Marshawn Lattimore is coming off a really bad injury year and wants probably a new contract because it's probably his last one. Derek Carr, you don't know what he is. Alvin Kamara, I don't know how he's not suspended, but
what is that all about?
Now as he was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and Slance McGee. I mean,
he's not even on the team anymore.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Olave is great. Don't get me wrong. Olave is kind of stuck between.
But he's by himself though. I mean, who do you have on the other side?
Basically, DJ Moore.
Yeah.
For Carolina for those 5 years before they traded him. He's a really good talent, but he hasn't got anyone to throw him the ball. Derek Carr was afraid to throw him the ball. Jameis Winston was like, "Here you go, baby."
That's right.
But
Jameis Winston didn't care. But Jameis Winston didn't care. He was like, "Hey, let's get it out there."
I
But,
love that he came in for the one play against the Bucks through that interception. That just made me so happy. After he threw that playoff touchdown pass, for him to come out and have that be the last case, that was really good.
Man, it made me happy. It thrilled me to the core. But just kind of getting back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we know that, and I kind of started off with this, but I want to kind of end with this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers you're going to get to see some of these players that we have questions about. No starters for this game, which I'm excited about. There are a couple of players.
Savasier, new era, baby.
Savasier, I want to see. Here's a guy I want to see what he can do. Savasier Dennis, 58,000 watts. I want to see what he can do. I mean,
that's the fun. The edge part, I think, is going to be so fun to watch.
Yeah,
Marquise Watts, Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
Who else am I missing? Anthony Nelson's probably going to play a little bit. Who's going to get those spots? Chris Braswell. Who's going to get those spots?
So we are going to see Braswell out there. Then.
Yeah, Bull said all rookies will play. So that means Barton's most likely going to play because even hypothetically, let's say Barton got hurt, you still have Hainsey as his backup.
100%.
But Barton needs to get out there.
I believe that he's what somebody Barton needs to get adjusted to the speed of the game
because the snap in a live game too.
100%. The tight end room, Cade Otton. Cade Otton. So Cade Otton is your starter then.
Yeah. So Devin Culp will get a lot of time. Payne Durham's probably going to play.
I think Payne Durham, and this is my hot take right here. Payne Durham has a spot on this team.
Yeah, no, he sparked last year. He looked great last year, in my opinion. He didn't block probably as good as what I'd want, but granted, he was a day 3 rookie, whatever. But he caught really nice contested balls last year,
and that's what we need right there. You need a tight end with nice hands. I mean,
and also again, we're going to be running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets compared to what Canales wanted to do, where 2 tight ends. So Otton really is the guy. So you don't need 3. You don't need O'Keefe to run 5 downfield routes against the Vikings and try to force the ball to him.
So with a O'Keefe, is this his job to lose, or is he on the hot seat? He on the bubble?
Where O'Keefe's going to make his money is special teams. So he might play a little fullback in some packages, might be jumbo, set 3 tight ends in the red zone. But he's going to be one of those guys you want blocking on the new kickoff, on the punt team. That's where O'Keefe is going to stay in this league, in my opinion.
So will we see that fullback position this year? Is this something that this offensive coordinator?
Probably not, just because McVay doesn't really use one. But again, you never know. And I never thought Canales was going to have a 21 personnel last year with 2 running backs out there. So you never know.
Because, and again, the NFL is a copycat league. And I've seen a couple of teams that have come back to using a fullback.
Well, those teams, Kyle Shanahan runs a similar scheme to McVay, and Shanahan relies on a fullback. McVay kind of doesn't, and Cohen's more of a McVay guy.
Well, there we go. I'm liking this.
I don't know who Darian Barnes is. Is that an older name I should know, Gene?
Oh, Darian Barnes. Hey, make me cheat.
Darian Barnes, former fullback for the Bucks. He played. He was on the 2002 team. He played special teams.
Okay.
Yeah, he bounced around, but he's basically a fullback.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who that. He obviously wasn't the fullback for for Mike Allstott. So
yeah,
I forgot who that guy was, but
that was the Rhino package. That was I'm drawing a blank on his name. He went to the Titans and played
Lorenzo Neal.
Rhino package. Whenever you saw the Rhino package, and again, that was something I never thought that would ever go away, and it did. So, it is what it is. Well, man, this has been exciting. This is probably, this is something I've been waiting for, is to get to hang out with you, man. I hope that we'll get to do this throughout the season. Glad Buck What You Heard is back, doing our thing, talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully we'll be back here on Thursday, 7 p.m. I realize that the NFL has a Thursday night game, which if you know Gene or Buck What You Heard. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Thursday night football game, so there's that.
I would be if there was 18 games, because then you could time your buys around it, so you get like an ultra.
And what's interesting to me when I think about the Thursday night game, it's the NFL has all these games. They have all these games that are going on, and there's nothing special about it. Like Monday Night Football. Remember, Monday Night Football was, man, everybody. If you learn Monday Night Football, hey, you're the standout for the rest of the week until that Sunday, the next Sunday, when all the games are going on. And now here we are. We got a Monday night game, got a Thursday night game, a Sunday night game. So all these games outside of the norm are no longer standout games, in my opinion, with the exception of maybe Sunday night. I guess the Sunday night game could be.
That's the only game that'll ever be flexed.
Right.
Like if they'll move a team out, if let's say Baker got hurt for the Bucs, they'd move it out most likely.
Yeah. But to me, honestly, I just am not a huge fan of Thursday night football. I'm just not. I really have never been.
I think if you have a bye before it, I think it would be awesome. You
know what? And that would make things a lot better, because they always talk about protecting the shield, protecting the players, whatever, but you just don't see that, and there's so much stuff that has been coming to light.
Well, we get Friday night football this year.
Yeah, exactly.
But you don't see it again.
And you know what, KB? I'm going to ask you about this. Have you studied the antitrust lawsuit that the NFL had as far as the NFL Sunday Ticket?
Yeah. What do you need to know about it?
I mean, to me, I feel like more fans need to be educated on this, because when I think about an NFL Sunday Ticket now, understanding that it's $50 a month. I think it's $50 a month in Europe. It's like a million times cheaper than it is in the United States. So basically what they're saying is we want to get all these new people in, so we're going to lower the price there. And we're going to force all these diehard fans that, go to these games or are invested in these teams. We're going to force them to pay this much more. And to me, it's a joke. It's a joke. It really is. And I feel like because ESPN, CBS, NFL Network, nobody's talking about this lawsuit, it isn't at the forefront to where people can understand how egregious this is, what the NFL is trying to do to the fans.
So SparkNotes version, Gene touched on part of it, but additionally, I know fans have been clamoring for, hey, I would love to just buy a package for the Bucs.
Right.
Well, now, obviously, with the partnership with YouTube TV, you can't just pay for Sunday Ticket. I mean, now you can, YouTube TV helped with that, where you can just pay for Sunday Ticket. You don't have to pay the $70, for all the other games or whatever, but it kind of makes no sense because you miss out on Sunday night games. You miss if your team is the 4:15 game, you miss the one, you miss all of that type of stuff. Or the Monday night football games, all that type of thing. So there's no types of packages for that. So
right.
From a fan's demand, and they're basically a monopoly. Again, they sold the rights to YouTube TV, so you can only get it exclusively through them. And
I can never understand why NFL didn't just come up with a division and keep all that money in-house.
They have NFL Plus, which is how I'm going to be watching these, preseason games, because you can watch the same experience that you have on NFL Sunday Ticket on NFL Plus. It's just for the regular season. So, yeah, you would think that they'd want to have that, but at the end of the day, YouTube TV, when they're paying you billions of dollars a year, it's hard to kind of say no to versus, taking all of that server, IT, all of that type of space when YouTube already has it built out. Amazon already has it built out, like that type of experience. So what the NFL was forced to pay a settlement. Right. Now, with that settlement, that's where the talk about the 18 games instead of 17 came in,
Mm.
is because the owners don't like name a billionaire that just likes giving away money.
They don't.
No one does.
No, not on their
So
watch.
their mindset is, oh, we can pay this by introducing an 18th game, 18 more, or another chance at merchandise,
Yep.
more chances for, you know, the streaming packages and all of that stuff. So it's like, oh, that can help basically pay our bill. And then some, obviously. So let's do it. Well, you have to agree with the NFLPA and, you know, all of that stuff. The players want it. I'm a firm believer in the Joe Burrow camp. If you're going to do 18 games, you know, make it, you know, 2 buys and, you know, you can make it work. I still don't understand why the NFL doesn't make their season end the Sunday before President's Day. Give us Monday off from work, please.
Yeah.
So like again, all you have to do is extend it like a week or space it out another week. Imagine during an all mandatory bye week where you have the Pro Bowl. You know,
right.
They're playing their kickball, their dodgeball, whatever. But essentially, just to stay on topic, the whole point of that antitrust lawsuit is essentially the NFL lost. They have to pay money. The owners have to pay money, and they want to recoup the money by adding an 18th game right now.
And it makes sense. Another thing that fans don't realize, over in Europe or Brazil or wherever the NFL has these different applications where these streaming services, you get every single NFL game. Here, there's a game that's out of market. There's a Sunday night game. There's a Monday night game. There's a Thursday night game. You get all that with your monthly subscription. You get every single NFL game. Period. End of story. You get all of them.
Whereas the problem, ESPN's not going to be a cable subscription at some point.
No.
Disney's going to own that. So Disney owns that. Amazon, Netflix, all of them want exclusive. Peacock want exclusive. Peacock might become their own thing at some point. They've already done it with wrestling. You can watch all of their, like, instead of doing the pay-per-views, you can just watch everything on Peacock. Well,
I've been watching the Olympics.
Do that with NBC. So you have, like, the NFL has all of these options. So they don't want to own all of that server space. They don't. And again, these companies are behooving because they know if you want YouTube TV and the NFL Sunday ticket package is going to do that, that's $70 a month times 12 months per subscription, you know, per year. Okay, Peacock, you pay $7 to $10, $15, whatever it is a month, you know, for that. Netflix, $15 a pop. Disney, $15 a pop. Next, like those companies, they're making money off that gym membership type of experience because they don't care whether or not you go to the gym. Their equipment is not going to break. And if it does, it's really cheap to replace.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme.
Yeah, 100%.
So they want to just keep collecting the checks. I mean, what do billionaires do? They make billions of dollars, not with their hands. You know, they're in tech.
Exactly. And they don't make this money by accident. This is deliberate to be a billionaire. It's deliberate unless you inherit the money, of course. But
that's what I mean is a lot of these billionaires, we hear it all in real estate. You want to make passive income, right?
Exactly.
These streaming services are passive income for them.
100%. So that is what it is.
The new kickoff rule, I'll end on this. I think it looks interesting. I'm afraid of the Bucs sucking at it just because I'm used to us having bad special teams. So I really don't like the fact that, you know, we could have our favorite punter kick it off into the end zone and the team start at the 30. But I'd rather them start at the 30 than limit a very long return.
Yeah, 100%.
I think this is where if we're good at it, I'll love it.
Yeah,
I'm just banking on the Bucs special teams units not being big. Well, granted, Keith Armstrong's gone, but like I'm just not used to. When have the Bucs ever had really since Rich Bisaccia like good special teams?
They haven't. They really haven't. And this is where you heard rumors of the coffin corner kicks and that kind of thing. That's
why you drafted Aguayo, remember?
Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, that didn't work out. But you understand, we understand where they're trying to go with this. And this is where I think you almost have to create a specialty. You have to create that kicker that will pin a team down to where if they try to run it out, they're not going to get that much yardage. So again, I don't know. I like the idea. I think it makes the game a little bit more competitive. I would personally like to see just start out to 25.
What I will say is I think it's safer.
Yeah,
it's definitely
100%.
safer. I have been fortunate to be as large as I am that I never had to run down the field on a kickoff. But those blindside blocks, especially in the olden days when you could, I forgot what they exactly called it, when like three of you can create like the wedge block.
Right.
The springs, that's not safe. This is safe. It's hand-to-hand close combat where you're 10 yards away from each other and you can see each other.
Right. I mean, you can't wind up and just go, and then you build up all this speed, and then you're having this violent collision. I would like to say start at the 25. Start at the 25 and do your
That's why I'm actually I'm not opposed to teams. Like, I think the Bucs, if we're not good at this, still having the punter that can just kick it out of the end zone.
That's what you want to do. There you go. I'm right there with you. So KB, man, thank you so much for coming on. Next week we're going to do this again. I'm glad to have you back. Let me get your final thoughts. We're going to roll out of here, man. And again, I'm glad you made it through that Hurricane Debbie. Debbie was a Debbie Downer, of course. So yeah, I'm glad
we only got the rain. Florida, ironically, mother named Debbie made it out safely, okay, and family's all good. Hope everyone's family out there is good. Final thoughts. And that same Rick Stroud, his podcast. Really cool story about Kyle Trask. I've actually been a big fan of John Wolford being QB2. But it really seems like Trask, remember when we had Brady and Gabbert was the backup because he did all of the responsibilities of what a backup's supposed to do. Really cool story about Kyle Trask, who has really taken like a leadership role for all of the young guys. So if any of like the offensive or defensive players have questions, they call, text, FaceTime him. He will even do like cadences where they will he'll record his voice like saying a play, and they have to like text back their assignments on said play, offensive line, receivers, running backs, that type of thing. I hope he adds, obviously being like a good scout or being able to help Baker, to his resume. If this is truly the case and Kyle's cool with being a backup, I think I would love to have him as a backup, for the long term. So
I'd love to see him as a coach at some point. I mean,
if he doesn't make it in the NFL or tries to go somewhere else, tries to start somewhere else or go to a place, I think it's just really hard to do that though, because unless you're like Baker, like a first overall pick, it's really hard for these teams to, not want to draft the Caleb Williams or the Michael Penix or the Bo Nix. Even if they're not the top quarterback, in the class, teams are going to draft guys in the first round. So, if Kyle ever doesn't make it, it's just really nice to hear those types of stories and these types of people who, again, he's a young guy who had to learn so lot in such a short time period and was built to be the successor of Brady. That didn't pan out. And yet he still has that positive attitude and trying to help everyone out. I just think that's super cool. And he sounds like obviously a really good guy. He was a backup in high school. He was a backup in college. Someone who's patient, waited his turn. Maybe he gets his turn in Tampa. Maybe he gets his turn somewhere else. But that seems like a guy that you root for.
Oh, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. Everybody that was in the chat, I appreciate you. We are excited about football is here. And we'll definitely be doing this, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. As much as we can, and I'm excited to have KB back. I'm excited to be doing this. We will have some guys from the Buccaneers. Shout out to the Buccaneers and all their listeners. Shooter in the Stash and on Facebook and all their listeners. Thank you guys so much. And this has been a lot of fun for me. And again, we will be talking about the Buccaneers, how they can improve, or whatever the hell else comes up. And again. That's pretty much it for me. I don't have a whole lot more. Again, guys, thank you. And we're going to go ahead and roll out of here. So, again, thanks, everybody. Everybody have a good evening.
Haven't done this since the